Welcome. I am Michele Leclaire, Executive Director of Buckham Gallery. Today, I am chatting with Kimberly LaVonne about her exhibition Between Here and There on view through March 18th. This exhibition may also be viewed on our website at buckhamgallery.org. Kimberly LaVonne's exhibition Between Here and There explores LaVonne's efforts to maintain and strengthen her connection with her Panamanian heritage. The ceramic works are inspired by forms found in pre-Columbian cocoa pottery. However, she uses the outside of these pieces as the canvas with which to showcase her images. These images explore themes like the architecture and atmosphere of her hometown of Ciudad Saber, the indigenous textile art moles created by Guna people in Panama, and the Diablico Susas, or Dirt Devil parades she would attend in Santiago when she was a child. LaVonne uses the many layers in her pieces to invoke the sights, sounds, and feelings of being in Ciudad Saber in hopes that it will create a dialogue between herself and her ancestral home. Before we join the conversation, I would like to say thank you to the incredible audience, whether visiting the gallery in person or viewing these videos online, and to all the artists who submit to our exhibition calls. I appreciate you. Next, I would like to say a big thank you to the individuals and organizations who support Buckham Fine Arts Project and Gallery, including the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation, the Michigan Arts and Culture Council, and the National Endowment for the Arts. The Greater Flint Arts Council Share Art Genesee Grant Program, made possible by the Genesee County Arts, Education, and Cultural Enrichment Millage Funds. Your tax dollars at work. Thank you. Buckham Gallery is pleased to present the work of Kimberly LaVonne and her solo exhibition Between Here and There. LaVonne is a ceramic artist who hand builds forms adorned with graphic illustrations depicting parts of her Panamanian heritage, family, connection, and remembrance. She received her MFA from Indiana University and her BFA from the University of Central Missouri. Her works have been exhibited both nationally and internationally, including the Oliva Gallery, Chicago, Illinois, and the San Angelo Museum of Fine Arts, San Angelo, Texas, Kiosk Gallery, Kansas City, Missouri, Stamp Gallery, University of Michigan, and in Hungary. She has completed 2 artist residencies in Hungary, as well as a residency with the Charlotte Street Studio Foundation in Kansas, Missouri. In 2016, she presented her work and research at the Death, Art, and Anatomy Conference at the University of Winchester, United Kingdom. Ceramics Monthly awarded her as one of the Emerging Artists of 2020, which was included in the May publication. In 2021, she was awarded as one of the recipients of the American Craft Council Emerging Artist Cohort Program. She currently lives and works in Detroit, Michigan. Oh, welcome, Kimberly. I am so pleased to have this opportunity to speak with you today and to learn more about your work.
Awesome. Thank you so much for this opportunity to chat, and just really excited.
Yeah. Well, first, I must say that I absolutely love your imagery on the ceramics and sort of the effectiveness of the sgraffito process, and I can't wait to ask you all about it. Okay, so first, well, I guess so. I like to start the conversation by learning a little bit more about your background, where you're from, and what led you to the art making process.
Sure. So I would say that I am like Midwest through and through. I've always had a hard time answering like where I'm from. And I think part of that's because my dad was in the army, so we were stationed around just a little bit. But born in Lake Forest, Illinois, when he was stationed there. We were stationed in Germany right after that. Grew up in Missouri, went to undergrad there, and we were stationed in Panama for a little bit too. In Fort Clayton, which is now Ciudad del Saber, when I was a kid. And again, moved back. We kept moving back to Missouri. I think my parents wanted us to have like a honing area. Like she'll have the same friends in the same school and it'll be like less stressful. And then I went to grad school in Indiana and now I live in Detroit, Michigan. So definitely like Midwest,
Yeah.
through and through.
Yeah,
And
and what led you to making art?
I I've been thinking about that, and I don't know, like, I feel like I've always drawn, when I'm thinking about being a kid in Panama, just like always drawing sketches with like birds with crazy patterns inside of them, has been really resonating as a strong memory for me. And then in Missouri, just, really being drawn to, I think there was like a documentary series called like The Power of Art, Simon Shamma's Power of Art, that I was just like, that's amazing. And like Bernini, just like really kind of like
Yeah.
being drawn to those things. And my parents collected so much stuff on their travels. We had masks from Guatemala. We had these beautiful handmade wooden birds that they hung above our stairs. A
Mm.
lot of ceramics from being in Germany. So a lot of like dishes and little like porcelain sculptures. And we had the most intense Christmas tree that we weren't allowed to touch because it had all these ornaments from like Czechoslovakia, where it's just like once that's broken, like you're not going to get another one of those, right?
Oh.
So just like really beautiful objects that like they collected. And yeah, I feel like that was definitely a part of it. When I was going to undergrad, it was initially for graphic design. And I had a course in high school. It was a vocational academy. So I'd already taken graphic design for a couple years, and it's like, this is what I want to do. I loved fonts and like like package design. I was like really excited about it, which is great. But then once I got to undergrad and I saw everybody in their studios and like the smells and like just kind of
Mm.
like maybe the mystery behind what was happening in those spaces. And I think like not even halfway through the semester, I talked to my parents and I was like, I want to be a painter. And they were like, oh,
No.
like, can't you take some painting classes? And I was like, oh man, if I'm gonna have like this, spend this time, I should really dedicate myself to like that thing, And they were like, okay.
Mhm.
And then by the end of the year, I came home with like all of my ceramic projects. And I was like, I also want to be a ceramicist. And they were like, oh.
Oh, but they collected the things in your home, right, from their different travels. So I mean that shouldn't have been too much of a surprise.
Yeah, I don't think it was a surprise. I think, they just wanted like especially my dad wanted more of a traditional, like you'll be able to make your own money and get health insurance and sort of thing. But I should land up all my projects and I was like pleading my case here. Like this, look, like obviously I should pursue this. And they were like, all right. So then I just kept going.
That's funny. I enjoy this question because well, one, I like to hear where it kind of stemmed from, but also the reactions of one's family. Because some people are like, "Oh yeah, my parents were artists, and they also, it just or grandparents or whatever, and it just followed one step to another." And others are like, "And then they were so crestfallen." Like my dad wanted me to be a science teacher. I don't know.
Yeah, I think because my dad was in the army, so I think at one point he had mentioned the Air Force, and I was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Dental hygienist. That was the other one I thought I should do.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh well.
there's still time. Yes.
Well, I guess for both of us. Oh, well, thank you. I just love that. So I'm going to bring up a slide with the installation view in just a second. Here we have your incredible works in the gallery as it looks today behind me. And so I would like to, if you would share a little bit, because you, of course, named the show yourself between here and there. And how did you choose this title for this body of work?
Yeah, that was titles are so hard.
Yeah.
And you know, I I almost feel like this title really stemmed back to 2020. Specifically, there's a piece in the front next to the corn bowl, the maize bowl, the self-portrait and saboret.
Mhm.
And that's a piece that I made during the quarantine. And that's, I was supposed to be planning a trip to go visit my mom and who I hadn't already seen for like several years. And I didn't want it to be
Mm.
so long between visits. It had already been like 7 years since I had visited her the first time. And, I was like, wanted like wanting to go back. And then of course, as everything shut down and everybody was stuck, and then I couldn't get to my studio. So I had gathered all of my things and just was making in my living room, which wasn't new to me because that's where I was making before I had a studio. But you know, everybody was experiencing isolation. And I think with that piece in particular, it was a lot of anxiety, all the little carvings on there. And you know, just thinking about and worrying about the people far from me, and the places and people that I wanted to be with, and the things I wanted to be connected to. So I feel like that was maybe the first piece that really got so personal. And then, you know, moving here to Michigan, and like more distance from moving from Kansas City to here, and like I'm even further away from my mom. And just thinking about like how we've been able to stay connected, and you know, really kind of diving into childhood memories and conversations that we have daily. And I think that the piece in the middle, the big round one, the bridge, is a really good reflection of that title, because on one side there's my mom with her phone in front of the Bridge of the Americas in Panama, and then on the other side is a photo of me with my phone in Capitol Park in Detroit. And so there's a literal bridge, but then it's also this bridging the space and communication, kind of trying to stay connected to culture, trying to stay connected to family. You know, how many times I've video chatted with my mom, you know, trying to get a recipe that she made down, that sort of thing. So that's, I feel like this work really is kind of filling that void a little bit between here and there. And thinking about even like that big round one, or a couple of, you know, just how full some of the forms are, the handles, and the way they kind of almost look like buoys to me, like floating, like they could float. And they kind of seem to float in between those spaces for me.
Oh, well, okay. So there are several things I've got to ask you about then. To follow it. But um, so I love to hear that these are this like a conversation pieces, not necessarily like something you put in your room to spark a conversation, but maybe it was the vessel of conversation between you, or and your mom. Because I think often, you know, in my paintings, it's a conversation with the people in my memory or my lives that I'm like kind of thinking about, and I've always considered that, you know. But these, you have a similar thing going on with the vessels, and I love that. um, and then, all right, so can you share a little bit like how you start a ceramic piece, and describe the sgraffito process for us?
Sure. So when I start a ceramic piece, the whole process for me is, I mean, there's a plan, but it's a very loose plan. I feel like the whole thing is almost about like searching and trying to find the form. There's only a couple pieces that I've sketched, and usually the sketching comes after I found the form, and when I'm trying to figure out the composition that goes on it. So, and I do have just a little bit to share, if
Yeah.
that's so typically whenever I'm starting a piece, and this is like, you know, really step one, it would just be like rolling out a slab like this, and it's about that thick, and then just trying to figure out like what I want my base to be. And so sometimes it could just be like, you know, a loose shape like that I'll then cut out. Um, and then after I've cut that out, say like this little messy guy, it's what I want it to be. I might kind of like try to form the edges a little bit to come up. Like I want this to be a vase. I'm not quite sure what that vase looks like yet. And then I'll start adding coils. And so that's what this is. And this is small, but and I like to do one coil at a time. So I'll just start like adding and blending little bit at a time, and then kind of shaping in between. And I've got some wooden tools, some wooden spoons, like cooking spoons, that I'll use to like whack the sides of it just to kind of get the shape that I want. And so then I'll just kind of do that to blend it.
Yeah.
And just add another coil once I like to make sure things are blended. I know that, there are some ceramics that show the coils, and I wish I could, but I'm just like, I'm too uptight about it. I'm like, no, gotta hide all that. Um, so
Well,
yeah,
you need it for the surface because you're gonna go back in and draw later anyway, so
yeah,
you have
yeah. I mean, and there are some people that leave the surface a little rougher and draw on it anyways, and I think
mm,
that's like awesome. Like I'm drawn to their work because that's not the way that I work, and but I do like to have a nice smooth surface, and so I'll be blending the inside, even though nobody's going to see that, as well as the
mm.
outside as best as I can. Um, and then I'll use like a series of toolbox here, a different series of like ribs for smoothing out the surface. And I've got some that are kind of got like a little tooth to them to kind of help blend a little bit more. So it's a real back and forth in that way until I can get the form in the shape that I want. After I've made the form, this is kind of where it gets a little hairy because you'd think like after so many things you'd plan better, but I don't. I just don't,
Awesome.
and I'm not going to. But I'm in the process. I love hand building because it's so meditative. And I like to listen to podcasts and audiobooks and kind of just like let myself kind of figure out where this is going. Again, I have sketched forms. I'm like, oh, that could be really cool to make, but it'll probably be a while before I actually make those. I tend to kind of just let the form find itself as I'm making it and go from there. And so once it's made, I don't want it to dry out. And I might give it like a day or two covered in plastic while I try to figure out what the drawings are going to be. Where do I want to paint the black slip on? And then I'll kind of go to like this is my Bible a little bit. And so this is kind of like this reference that I make where I keep all of my, see if I can find a good example, like all of my drawings that I use on my ceramics. So everything's done in a sketchbook and traced on tracing paper. And then I use those tracings as almost like skins that I lay against the ceramics to then trace again. There's a lot of tracing that happens. But, anytime I come up with, like hands or feet, these are some hands that are on the double neck picture. And it's like, you know, I like having that book because it's almost like I could maybe use that again for something else, and it's going to have completely different context and a completely different composition, or so that's helpful for me. Even like the tiger imagery, the Diablico masks that come up, like they're in there, and I can reverse them or remix them with things or change the patterns on them. But it's kind of nice to be able to be like, I don't have to reinvent the wheel every time because these things keep changing, especially with the form. So once I think I've decided that, I might do a sketch in my sketchbook of like where everything's going to be laid out or how I think it should be. And then I'll paint the slip on to the piece. But everything, again, like it's a little hairy because the piece is wanting to dry. So it's like you gotta,
Yeah, that was gonna be my question. I mean, because the slip, is it leather hard already, or does it have to be more moist than that? The body, the
uh,
vessel before for the slip to stay on.
yeah, not quite leather hard. I mean, it stays on pretty good. It's a really nice
Okay.
slip recipe. But especially if I want to like correct something, I don't want it to be too dry because I do make mistakes. And so to be able to go back in and like fill an area with slip and like carve around that mistake,
Mm,
I like to have that flexibility. So if it dries too much, I lose that. Um, so then I paint the piece with this like black slip, and I'll just brush it on in a couple of different directions. So hopefully you don't really see the brush marks that much. And I want it to be not wet and not quite leather hard. So even right now it's too soft because when I push my fingers on it, I can see like my
mm.
fingerprints. And so that would be too fresh and really frustrating to carve through. So I might, leave it uncovered, work on something else, and then just keep checking on it. And then I would lay the tracing papers on top and lightly press with a stylus tool. So sort of like this double-ended tool that I have here.
Oh,
And then kind of like it leaves a very light impression on the black that I can still see. And that's like my guide for carving. the imagery. And then I have like a bunch of little loop tools that I use for carving. And you don't want it to get too dry too, because that like wears out the tools. And I'm pretty sure I sprained my finger this fall, like doing with all the
Oh
carving.
no.
So it's
Wow.
better. It's getting better
Yeah.
now. So that's kind of that process. I played around with I think the piece that was up with the Diablico masks, even like cutting out paper, like newsprint, and getting it wet and laying it on the vessel before I put the black slip on, and then painting the
Mm.
black slip and removing the paper. And so then that pattern is there and I don't have to carve any of that out. And so that's why those areas are so smooth on, yeah, those zigzags on
Okay.
were cut out with
Wow.
newsprint, gotten wet, and then laid on the gotten wet, were made dipped in water and then placed on the vessel. And then I painted the black slip on top of that. And once it's set, then I peeled those off and it left the pattern, which was fun, kind of mixing up different methods of um, imagery making.
Yeah, I love that. And how forgiving is the slip? Like if you've removed an area and then changed your mind, are you able to like go back and fill it and keep working? Like I'm really curious because I know, a lot of like drawing and painting processes I'm familiar with, but working into three-dimensional objects seems more more or less forgiving, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like it's just taken like time and experience to know like this is this there's no going back on this one. Like I mean, like I can really mess something up if I carve too soon and if I wait too long. And so it's really finding that sweet spot where let's say like I slip and like carve through an area and I'm like, ah, crap, or if I forget to take off like a ring and then like that leaves a weird impression when I pick up the whole thing. Um, then I can go back with the slip still and like fill in those areas and paint. I've filled in carvings, like complete carvings before and kind of
Mhm.
smoothed it out. And it's like been, you can't tell, you can't see. So I think it's just been experience working with that to know what to do and when to say, well, move on to the next one.
Yeah, well, I've done a lot of wood cut, and so with the razor blade cutting into like the soft pine, and sometimes it's easy to slip and you lose part of a line or something, which is, I guess, why I had to ask.
Oh yeah, for
You sit there
sure.
with your wood glue and you're trying to get it back in, but it's
I think the carving process is actually more forgiving than maybe like the hand building process for me, because it's like once something maybe starts to crack and then you're like, well, is this gonna get worse once it gets fired? Or, I think I love ceramics and I love hand building, but there's always that, like, I put so much time into this. Is there something happening in there that's
Mm,
not gonna make it? So that's stressful.
yeah, yeah. So your statement describes images honoring memories of your childhood in Panama. Though I'm curious, what is the importance of the teeth imagery?
Yes. Yeah, I really need to practice the answer for this because I get this question all the time and it doesn't get any easier. But I will take us way back for a second to grad school. I wanted to be a figurative sculptor and I love figurative drawing. And something clicked for me or happened where I was starting to look more internally in the body versus just the form of the figure, and starting to deconstruct it, literally drawing like each bone in the face and including all the teeth and sculpting intestinal forms. And so I'm doing this. I'm also like going to Italy and looking at things like the Capuchin crypts and seeing the body, like literally bones used as decoration in these crypts, which was beautiful. Looking and visiting all these, I mean, even going to, oh gosh, I'm blanking on the name now, the Galileo Museum, and seeing like his finger like in this little glass case thing, and it's just like relics, reliquaries, like even like in the religious spaces, saying bejeweled bones and stuff. And it just made me wonder, like, who were these people? Like, and this is what's left behind of us. And that really resonated with me. And so a lot of the work that I was making really before this body of work kind of played around with the idea of relics, reliquaries, and remembrance and death. And it's kind of transformed, to be, for me, a little bit more celebratory when I'm adding the color for the first time, and I'm adding these sort of symbols of Panama, the masks, the fruit, the flowers, and kind of blending it with this weird tooth imagery that still resonates with me. For me, the teeth are still figurative on their own. They got little legs or like little bodies. I see them almost as like little ghosts, which, thinking about death and remembrance still feels like there's a little play there. And just the objects that get left behind. I've been given people's teeth. People,
Wow.
yeah, people tell me, people bring me bones a lot still, which I love. If anybody out there, I'd be happy to collect some bones. But but I don't know, it just still all really, really resonates with me as being relevant in honoring heritage, tradition, family, and the parts of us that get left behind when we're gone, whether that is somebody that was incredibly influential or in our lives, impactful, or literally, family. And that's, I think, really where that imagery stems from. There are a few pieces in the show that didn't end up having any teeth imagery, just a couple. And that surprised me when I made them. And I was like, it's done. And I was like, something, oh my gosh, like this one doesn't have any teeth. So it was exciting to see some that they didn't make it on, and it was okay. But I don't feel like that imagery is going anywhere anytime soon. I mean, it makes a great, like on that bottom left image, great odd little like filler too, pattern wise. Again, the body is decoration. So
Yeah, well, I love it. And it does, especially it becomes sort of this part of the background patterning or overall kind of composition that brings it all together. And also teeth. I mean, how amazing. We've been my mom has my tooth fairy's teeth in a jewelry box in her drawer, and I have my children's growing collection of teeth in my, so yes.
yeah, it's I
Oh,
mean, that's little bits of us that get left behind. It's so interesting and intimate. And I also get a lot of people telling me like their dental horror stories too, which, I get it. So
right, yeah. Oh my goodness. Are you researching imagery, or do you travel back to Panama to seek? I mean, I know you showed us your book where you're collecting your imagery, but where are you researching? Um, or just is it just from memory of remembering these
yes.
patterns and colors? And yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I was looking around like there's a book that I have actually.
Oh,
That is really great. It is pre-Columbian designs from Panama. And so I found this and I was like, this is amazing. But some of the patterns or forms or ideas definitely came from like flipping through this book. And
oh yeah,
like,
wow.
yeah, they're just fat like that zigzag.
Hmm.
Yeah. So like this book has been incredible until I can, see some more in person. Definitely like visiting museums anytime I see any like pre-Columbian coke pottery from Panama. That's, kind of zip to those areas. And so, some like while I'm here, whatever I can find. Um, I haven't been to Panama in a long time. I'm planning on going this year. And so definitely want to, see like what's, studios are there, like what are people doing now. What are some contemporary artists doing? Visiting maybe like some traditional pottery spaces. When I was a kid growing up, my parents collected so much pottery from Panama, and there'd be like little stands on the side of the road that they would stop at and just collect stuff. We had a garage full when I was in Missouri. So
Oh, wow.
it was a little bit of like, influences of stuff from home and my memories of those experiences, and then trying to do my own research here. It's conversations and memories. So the river for me really resonated as a piece talking about a memory that I had when I visited Panama one of the last times. And I remember like all the family got together and my grandmother got like all these ingredients and like literally made soup at the side of the river, like this, I think it was sancocho, which is like a chicken stew. And everybody's just sunbathing and kind of just enjoying the space and the day. And so that's what that piece is about for me. So pulling from those kinds of memories, there's the cookie jar, which has like those big Maria cookies all over them. And I just remember my mom was like really particular about like, these are my snacks. Do not touch them.
Oh my goodness.
And so and I remember asking her too, just about that, and she was like, that's what I wanted. So yeah, that's so a mix of memories, a mix of that research, and then things that I've collected at home too. So I have like the imagery of the diablicos sucios. So I have like 3 of these little masks at home that I keep hung up in my studio, and just recently started like exploring them and doing some research on them, trying to find like more examples of them. And then the molas, so some of the patterns on the vessels, especially like the pitcher, have reference to, I'm trying to find like a really bright one. They're all really bright. But these are molas, which is like a traditional textile by the Guna, which is an indigenous group in Panama. And it's like I think it's called a reverse applique. I'm not a sewer at all, but like the different layers of pattern in
Oh,
there,
wow.
insane. And let's see, where's my favorite one? Favorite one's on the bottom. This one, just like the little triangles on the handles of one of my pieces.
Oh,
Definitely.
yeah.
So yeah, that's I think that's
Oh, those are great.
what
Yeah, and thank you for having those to share. It's great to see that. Okay, so now this is going to bring me back to the question that I came up with while you were talking about, and I saved it for later. It was the shape. You said that you were hand built, and they kind of just evolve as you go. But are they also referencing pre-Columbian pottery there, or this is just like the I guess the handles that seemed so odd, not odd, but unexpected. That when you said they were like buoys, kind of lifting you up, that clicked in a whole different way than I was expecting. I thought there must be a different reference. So I don't know. Did that all just happen organically, or were there other influences?
I think I look at like the pre-Columbian ceramics, and I'll look at it, but I'm not trying to directly replicate anything. And I don't really have a plan when I'm building, but definitely like as I'm going through the process, taking a step back and being like, okay, so like, where is this going? Am I still in that vein of referencing lightly like the pre-Columbian pottery? And yeah, the handles are, I don't know, like they're full, and they're like these little arms like reaching up to be picked up or something.
Yeah.
I mean, that's still so new to me. I'm still like sitting on, I'm like, it makes sense. It feels right. I'm just not quite sure what they are quite yet. So yeah, I don't know if that answered that question.
Yeah, no, that's good. Okay, and then like the double neck vessel, the pitcher, excuse me. Um, so I was just curious, like technically just curious, was it like three different parts that you brought together? Or do you really just build it from the bottom up?
I built that one from the bottom up. There's a wall in the middle of the lower section to kind of help support, and then
Mhm.
it kind of split there and then came back together. Um,
Oh,
the connecting part at the top was the most difficult. I think I redid that probably 10 times because I was just like, that's not it. So frustrating.
yeah.
But yeah, I love that bottom part on that.
Yeah, that's also great. Are your figures specific people in your life? I mean, obviously self-portrait, but you know,
Yeah. So it's a mix. Like the one on the right, the self-portrait and Saburet is definitely that's the one that I made during like quarantine. That so that is me. Um, and the other two are not. So the one in the middle is, I think when did I do that one? I do still sketch sort of like from memory or off the cuff. And so that's not like anybody in particular, but it's just I love the figure and wanted to like incorporate the figure
yeah,
way. And maybe in a little bit more of an odd setting, especially as like the backgrounds and patterns get like more and more complicated, which I'm really loving. The left one is actually kind of a drawing that I did of Selena Gomez.
oh,
Yeah, I
yeah,
know. So I do like you collect like imagery or go through whatever I find, whatever I can. Whenever people move out of my apartment building, there'll be like a stack of magazines and like National Geographics and stuff. I'm like, oh great. Start like ripping them apart. And so I saw an image of her that was just so striking and played around with drawing it and kind of just trying to transform it. And it, you know, I know like, it kind of veers a little bit away from like the family aspect and connection, but she in this drawing, I mean, this is more of like a technical, like I had never carved anything like that before. And that's why that piece is one of my favorites, is just the confidence in the carving, which I see in other people's work and I'm like, oh, I wish I was so confident to just, like make that mark. And I when I finished this, I was like, oh, like something clicked in a way that it hadn't in any of the work that I'd made before. And that technical aspect, even like the rendering on her neck, feels more like a block print almost than
hmm
anything. So that piece is one of the more exciting ones for me in the technical aspect. And then I was scared because I was like, well, how do I do this again?
one line at a time. Yep, you can do it. Oh, well, thank you. Um, oh, well, my next question kind of feel like got asked already. Hmm. Um, okay, so we're gonna skip a little bit. So I love that you made ceramics that go on the wall, wall pieces. So um, how did you come to create your wall piece?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, when I had first thought about doing some wall pieces, because I've always had like a wall component in some of the work that I've done. And this form in particular isn't necessarily like a new thing for me. But when I had first approached like this, putting this work together for the show, I had thought I was going to do like the larger platters, which is what I'd been doing for a while. And I was just like, I need to do something else. And um, I was having like a studio visit with a colleague, and she was like, what about those forms that you'd made before? Like those were so great. And I was like, why aren't I, playing with that anymore. Like there was nothing wrong with it. And they were actually really great and kind of, easy pieces to hang on the wall, not too big. And I'm still thinking about this idea of portraits. And what I love about like the size and shape of these is that they're so, I don't want to say precious, but it does have that sort of like, this is an image inside of a locket kind of a feel.
Yeah, it
Um,
does. The oval shape and everything. Yeah.
Thank you. And then just wanting to do something a little different. So the addition of the flowers on the outside was new. And as I was doing it, I was like, whoa, like this is fun to do, but also like kind of exciting to see kind of this more sculptural element with the drawing and the wall hanging part. And I'm almost wishing that I would have, and maybe if we get to this later, like had incorporated some of that sculptural quality with the flowers onto the vessels, if you have like flowers popping out.
Mm.
And so I didn't, this is probably like the last of the series that I made for the show. So it's like, but exciting. So, but with this, I
Well,
wanted, oh, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say that's the thing about making work. One piece just leads to the next. So you're not going to go back and add the flowers to the ones you already have. You're just going to make a whole other body of work and try to add this new element going forward.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm excited. It kind of, keeps me engaged in the studio for sure. And with these, I wanted to almost like commemorate the women on my mom's side of the family. So the one on the left is my mom, and it's the image on her resident alien card that she had taken a picture of and she had sent me. And she was so young and so serious and and I remember when I was in elementary school seeing it and then like doing show and tell and being like, my mom's an alien. Like there's proof, there's a card.
Yeah.
My parents just being like, well, that was a fun conversation to have with the teacher. But kind of that image coming back into my interview for me, and my mom kind of spending more time with her mom, and my aunt Dida. And so she has sent me pictures of them during Christmas and New Year's. And that's been really great to kind of like see new imagery of these people that I haven't seen in like almost 14 years. And I just wanted to kind of capture that on there and blend them with the work that I do. So that was really exciting for me to kind of see them in this way. And there's other people that I'd like to kind of make portraits of like this.
Oh yeah. I think you could do a whole wall of little portraits. Yeah. Oh, that would be incredible. Thank you. Could you tell me more about the obliquos, the dirt devils? Like I don't know their background at all.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I have like memories of them as a kid. And my dad collected masks. So we had some Diabolico Sucio masks hanging up around our TV at home downstairs. And the tradition, there's like I think it's rooted in Catholicism, and these men wearing these black and red striped outfits with these devil masks, and they have these little clickers, and then they'll have like I think it's a bladder filled with water maybe, and so it's like a little bit unpleasant. Like I think like when you read on it, it's like the smell's not great, but they kind of go marching through the street. And I remember in this like parade, and I remember seeing the parade as a kid, and my mom being like, if you step out on the street, they'll whip you, like it's a game. And so if you go out there, you're agreeing to play the game. And so you don't want to do that. So being kind of like scared, like I don't want to get whipped by these guys that are like, going down the street with these clickers and like, kind of,
Wow.
gesturing kind of aggressively at people. And that's, I think the art of the mask making there is very strong, and it's definitely changed the way they look, you know, since I was a kid. So I'm really excited to kind of go back and maybe, if I can meet some of the craftspeople that are engaged in this practice, or kind of do some more um, collecting of the masks or imagery of them, I think would be really exciting.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, so a little scary for a child, I would imagine, but maybe not. I don't know.
My my mom's always been a bit of a jokester in that way, I guess.
Well, she's warning you not to go out, I guess. It was very protective. So what's next in the studio? Anything that you're already working on, or you're just taking a little moment to breathe and after, because this was a lot of work and a lot of it's very recent, I know, from our earlier conversation. So I don't
Oh, for sure.
know.
Um,
Other I was gonna,
I
other than maybe adding the flowers or sculptural elements to the vessels, any other thoughts or plans?
Yeah, so I was thinking a lot about the drawing aspect, and how maybe like how these could literally translate into like block prints. And so wanting to play with that a little bit. And then as far as ceramics goes, definitely want to keep exploring. Like I feel like I just sort of like got like one foot into this body of work, which is exciting. Like it feels celebratory, it feels more fun and exploratory, excuse me, exploratory. I'm running out of words. Um, it's it feels right. And so I want to continue to see like where that goes, and with the forms and like the flowers. I also really have fun making utilitarian stuff, which I don't do a lot of because I'm really slow at it, to be honest. Like I don't do like craft shows and stuff because I'm like, I need like 2 years to make espresso cups and bowls and stuff because I just am so slow. But just playing around with like some of this imagery on things that maybe people might be able to use and have easier access to. And I'm kind of intrigued by like toast trays, something I've been thinking a lot about too. I don't know if you've seen like in period pieces where somebody comes out with like a tray to put on the table that has like all the toasts like vertical in it.
Yeah.
I've seen a couple ceramicists that are making them in their style, and I'm like, those are so cool. So, maybe not like related to like, I don't know, like gallery work necessarily, but definitely more laid back, fun, something that somebody might be able to use or have at home kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
well, that's interesting, that you said that. Um, they're so beautifully carved and decorated. You think of them as something that would go on a shelf, but they
Mhm.
are, frequently, being functional vessel forms. So, so can these be used as both functional and non-functional, or I mean, how do you see them?
I feel like they definitely can be used. Like they are quite literally functional vases. I think the only one that I would never try to use is the double neck pitcher. Like it's very heavy, and it
Yeah.
would make a huge mess. I know from experience. So um but yeah, I mean, I guess it just depends. I mean, I could definitely see like the Jaguar vessel, having like a bunch of hydrangeas or something, or just greens
Mm.
in that one. And I think that could be really pretty. The tripod pitcher, I would almost use that more for like, I think I would use all of them more for like floral arrangements versus anything for like serving or pouring drinks out of. And maybe a little bit of that comes from that I was a florist for a while before moving to Detroit. And so I'm still, a little bit of me still thinks of like, oh, like you could definitely do like a big thing in this. And so I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh, that would be gorgeous. Yeah. Well, Kimberly, thank you so much for spending this time today and discussing your work further. Everyone who has entered the gallery has just been so excited. Our Flint audience is so excited by your work, and I know several people have reached out online as well. So this has been really fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was so exciting to like see the show in person and see the work in the gallery with the other artists too. That's yeah, thank you so much for providing such a wonderful space for my work.
Oh, thank you so much to Kimberly for her time today, and I hope you all enjoyed this conversation and video as much as I have. Okay, thank you. Bye.